Hey everybody, Robert from Black Belt Gaming. I guess I better move away my Batman The Long Halloween and my Ren and Stimpy DVDs. It is October 2023. We're very close to Halloween, and I decided to take a jump into Call of Cthulhu, the starter set. And there is a solo adventure that came with this. I've actually picked up a few more, assuming that I would enjoy it. But I just started this one from book one yesterday, and I thought I would see if you wanted to spend a little time with me as I continue along in this adventure. So this is called Alone Against the Flames, and it came in this starter set. And as I began the adventure, I decided to put together a little character and made a copy of the character sheet. But it's guiding me through this process, and it has asked me to think of a name of the character. I decided Robert might be good. Occupation, I chose Professor. And they gave me a sort of a range of characteristics, and I wrote those numbers down. I think it was 40, 50, 50, 50, 60, 60, 70, 80. So my lowest score I actually put into strength, and my highest score I put into dexterity. Next highest score was in intelligence, and then after that was the education. The others are in the mid-range, around 50. So the adventure started with me deciding to leave my hometown, and I'm taking a new job in Arkham. And I'm getting on this bus, and I think the bus driver, I think his name was Silas. Anyway, he wasn't rude, but he was just a bit odd. And we were driving along, and I think we did chit-chat a little bit. We ended up nearly crashing because there was a tractor in the road, and he swerved off, and I failed a dexterity check. Not dexterity check. Was it dexterity? I failed some sort of check. It may have been dexterity, even though I have a good score there. And I ended up taking a hit point of damage. My hit points are 10. I took a hit point of damage, kind of some bruised ribs. We got back on the bus and continued on our way. And he drove me to this lone little village. It's beautiful, but he started to say that we were having some trouble, some bus trouble. And I managed, not really because I had any skills in drive or mechanic or anything like that, but I was able to make a difficult psychology check. And I was able to determine that he was lying to me. So he has, for some reason, stopped this bus on purpose in this village, this small town. And he told me where I could stay the night. And so I went down the street carrying my luggage. I actually confronted the bus driver. I said, I know you're not being honest with me. And he got ticked. He got angry and kind of threw my bags off the bus. And anyway, that probably wasn't the best move. And I ended up going down, and I think her name was May. And this woman had a room for rent, and she welcomed me in and gave me some tea. I ended up chatting with her a little bit. There was a failed roll there. I think it was a charm roll, trying to get her to engage with me, but I failed that roll, so she just kind of continued to talk about what she wanted to talk about. And I think there was a little girl, may have been May's daughter, that was peeking at us as we were talking. I didn't really have a chance to talk to her. In the morning, I felt better. I had healed my hit point of damage, got my bags, went to the bus to continue on our way, and the bus was gone. So I've been stranded here. So I started to head back to the place where I stayed, and I think I am back there. And I'm looking for maybe another way out, some other transportation. They don't really have many cars here, if any. But she was saying maybe somebody has a horse and wagon or horse and buggy, and maybe they can take you somewhere. So as I started to head out and look around, I did succeed on a spot check, and I spotted this blackened structure that the village seems to be built around, and it looks like it's been heavily burned from time to time. It's an odd looking platform, maybe about as high as my head, and it looks to be burned. And they're talking in town about some sort of festival where they must light something on fire. And so, anyway, I'm not really sure what it was. I did spot an old man walking by, and his eyes were a bit weird. I think they were a bit gooey. I don't know. I don't know. Just some weird kind of gooey, watery eyes. And I guess other than that, he looked all right. He certainly seemed to speak fine. And I think that's about where I am. I have some choices to go out and check out some various things in the area. So I thought I would bring you into the adventure at this point, and why don't we take a look around and see what we find. So yeah, here it is. It says you're beginning to get your bearings around Emberhead. That's the name of this area. Would you like to explore some more? You may choose another option from those below, and don't repeat a previous choice. So we see here, what was it? Examine the large metal structure. I wonder if that's the one I already did. I think so. So then I have some other choices here. Looking for transport, or I could check out this abandoned church. Seek out the village hall. Walk down to the lower level and check out the eastern road. Anyway, look for local people with their own transport. And, maybe they can help me get out of there. So let's see, what do we want to do? Maybe, why don't we go to the general store and ask about some transport there? Maybe somebody at the general store can help us. All right, it says the general store is on the corner beside the main road just before it plunges to the south. The shopkeeper is a brisk, immense lady with a starched apron and strong shoulders. She looks hard at your unfamiliar face. Transport? There's a motor coach that comes through twice a week. Missed it? Trucks bring in my supplies every second Tuesday, but he's not due until next week. She shrugs. It seems Emberhead is content to keep its distance from the outside world. Well, it says you have enough money to buy one or two inexpensive everyday items here. Note them down on your investigator sheet. Remember, the year is 1927. The shop stocks no weapons except a dusty hunting knife. Was it dusty? Dusty hunting knife, which you may purchase if you want. Then go to 25. So we're going back to 25. That's where we were. Yeah, why don't we assume we pick up the knife, and maybe I'll just write down knife here. Maybe we'll pick up a lighter, something just in case we end up in the dark somewhere. So we'll assume we picked up a couple of those items. So where to next? We can seek out the village hall. We'll go to 84. The village hall backs against a cliff at the east side of Silbury Street. It's the largest building you've seen so far in Emberhead. It is, however, locked and shuttered. You walk around it, peering in through the gaps in the shutters. There seems to be one large room, presumably for community meetings, and a smaller annex that serves as an office and archive. One of the windows is bricked up, but back at the main door you can see no posted opening hours. Mr. Winters doesn't open up mornings this time of year, says a gray-garbed woman passing by. Best come back this afternoon. You ask whether the office has a telegraph. Don't know. Who would we call? You'll have to try again later. I mean, there are some other places to check out. Look at the lower level of the Eastern Road and explore the church, but I don't really know why I would do that right now. So I'm really wanting to find some transportation and get out of here. So probably look look for some people that may have their own means. Well, not far from the Ledbetter House on the north side of Silbury Street, there's an open courtyard. The rhythmic tattoo of a hammer seems to announce your approach. The courtyard is the busiest location you've seen in Emberhead. It is bordered by a ring of workshops. Some are brick buildings, some are rough huts. A blacksmith ceases to hammer, thrusting something red and glowing into a bucket of cold water. A weaver looks up from his loom, blinking at you for a moment before returning to his shuttle. A potter, engraver, and carpenter each work in their own space, exchanging friendly banter. You move among the artisans, chatting about their work. Eventually, you bring up the question of export. Some of them send occasional packages with Silas. All right, that's the bus driver. Some restrict their custom entirely to villagers. You receive no suggestions about alternative transport. You can attempt to make a psychology roll. Maybe we'll do that. We had some luck with that before, but it's not a super high score or anything, but we were successful with it. We've got a 50, so 50-50 chance here. Well, that's a 92, so that is a no. We need to go back to 25. All of these are turning out to be dead ends. Well, why don't we walk to the lower level and check out the Eastern Road? We'll go to 115. The air is fresh and the walk down the lower ridge invigorating. You notice cultivated fields stretching through the lowlands around Emberhead, and among the crops some livestock, but no horses. Okay, are you going to have to make your onward journey on foot? Further down the road, skirts the edge of the ridge and descends. There are a few scattered hovels here with signs of habitation. They are set substantial distance apart, so they're kind of spread out. As you examine them, a door opens and an older man steps out. He wears a bedraggled suit but carries a piece of cloth which he tosses over his head like a hood. As he does this, he sees you and freezes. So we're supposed to make a luck roll. I did a 3d6 luck roll and didn't roll so great, but I did write it down somewhere. Let me see if I can find it. Okay, I found it on the character sheet. It's a 55. I ended up with a 55. So Let's see if we can get a 55 or less. We got a 33, so we got lucky there. Make a luck roll. If you succeed, go to 127. 127 is right here. The man looks up at the village, scanning the cliff tops. You get a brief flash of his face. There's something unsettling about it. Then he turns to walk away from the road, but as he does, he raises a hand and slowly beckons to you. All right, let's follow him. I really don't have that much else going on. So we'll go to 142. You follow the man around the outcrop, and he glances up, then steps between two rocks and vanishes. Closer inspection reveals a narrow channel leading into the cliff. There is just enough light to see a small natural chamber within. You will be uncomfortably close to this man if you go inside. So, should we go in there or not? I think I'm going to follow him in. So we go to 160. Wait a minute, isn't that right? Make sure I chose the right one. We follow him. Oh, 191. I'm supposed to go to 191. Nearly went to the wrong place. Here we go. With wary steps, you squeeze between the rocky outcrops and enter the concealed chamber, almost banging your head on the low ceiling. The man settles back against the wall and watches you until you draw close, and then he slides back his hood. Oh boy, make a sanity roll. All right, what's going on? I thought maybe he wanted to tell me something in secret, but sanity roll. Our sanity is 60. And we got a 09, so that is a definite success. So make a sanity roll. If you fail, lose 1. Then go to 199. Let's see what's going on. Some of the man's face remains. A strip from the side of his jaw to his right eye socket is healthy and pale, if aged, but the left side is consumed by angry scar tissue. One eye droops, hooded by melted flesh, and the nostril on the side is pulled open to leave a gaping hole. The disfigured man studies your reaction with his one good eye. Name's Arbogast. Wilbert Arbogast. Guess I don't need to ask what brings you to Emberhead. I'm going to admit that Silas stranded me here. So that's 214. Everybody's talking about this festival. He was wondering if I came for the festival. The swollen mouth gives a twisted smile downwards. Son of a devil has rat's blood. His fingers tighten into a fist. Go to 221. All right, maybe he can tell me what's going on. Arbogast fixes you with a lopsided yet intense stare. You seek me out, eh? He looks up at the cave ceiling. Which one of them told you about me? Never mind, it don't matter. Truth is, they fear what I know. They'd never come at me direct. Don't want to end up like old Arbogast. He giggles. The high-pitched sound is all the more grotesque coming from his bloated lips. Then abruptly his gaze turns to iron. Emberhead died 40 years ago. Shattered by flame, consumed by the stars themselves, the ancient hill was cleansed by inferno, and from the blackened ground came new life, as is the way of all things. The Abenaki knew. Abenaki, what's that? The Arbogast wipes his nose with his sleeve, except none of that happened. The flames The flames were turned away, the necessary death postponed a year and year again, and now those up there, he stabs a scrawny finger at the ceiling, think themselves saviors of the village, think they can defy the great old ones. Ha! Kuthga? He shakes his head. With a strange aeons, their lives matter less than the blink of an eye. Well, let's continue on. Fierce intelligence burns in his gaze, but you suspect he might be quite insane. Should his mood change, it would not be difficult for him to seize one of those loose rocks and crack your skull with it. So what should we do here as we face and listen to this guy? We can ask him about the Abenaki. We can ask him about the great old ones. We can ask him about the villagers. Or leave while we still can. Well, why don't we ask about the... I don't know, I am a professor and an archaeologist, so I might be somewhat interested to know some of this he's talking about. Let's ask about the great old ones. Let's turn to 237. I wonder if that's what he looks like. Maybe so. 237. A smile of sickly rapture comes across his scarred features. The great old ones, the Windwalker, Cthulhu, the crawling chaos, like the rest of them, spread like gnats upon the earth. You think your actions matter? Your existence matters? He shakes his head. We are the dust that shifts in the breeze, the motes that drift in the last rays of the sun. You are nothing and we are nothing. He gathers himself into silence. Just when you think the sermon is over, he stirs. Here you are, closest to the living flame, not that belching green column beloved of Kingsport. I mean, it which preceded all life on earth, it which lit the void while our world was formed. It has infinite fuel, infinite patience, and it will consume all. Well, he runs his hand through his hair. A wide strip of his missing is missing on the left side, displaced by scar tissue. He climbs to his feet. It says you may permanently add 2 points to your Cthulhu mythos skill. All right, so my mythos skill, is that in the... It's credit rating. I know it's got to be on this character sheet somewhere. Okay, there it is. Cthulhu mythos. Well, we got a 2, so I'll just put that over to the side. We're supposed to go to 259. All right, he pauses in the shadows. There's something about you, something the previous ones never had. Perhaps you can make it through. If you want to hear more, meet me again after dark, 9 o'clock, the graveyard on the other side. He lifts a gnarled finger. Don't be followed, else I won't be there. This ain't the time of year for a showdown. He wipes his nose on his sleeve again. Go now. Their eyes are on me. And stranger, don't try to run. You'll never make it. You emerge into the sunlight blinking and more than a little shaken. All right, you've discovered a secret. Later tonight, the text will offer you a chance to follow up on a previous appointment. At that point, if you want to meet him again, add 20 to your current entry number and then go to the new entry. Follow now to 160. Well, you turn back to the road and your core business, getting out of Emberhead and onward towards Is that Ossipee? The ridge gives you a good viewpoint from which you can see the course of the road. It winds with the hills disappearing into the woodland, and a while before emerging further on, you lose sight of it, somewhere towards a second patch of woodland. By your best estimation, that is at least 6 or 7 miles distance. You see no other settlements or traffic. It may be worth taking a chance and walking. The weather is still mild, but you will need supplies before you attempt it, so we got to go back to 25. Well, the only other place I think that I haven't gone is this church. So you cross the street towards the church and you glance to your left and your gaze alights on the large metal structure. Something bothers you about its positioning. You back up and look again. Yes, Emberhead. Emberhead's central thoroughfare points directly at the structure. This seems too precise to be coincidence. This is that metal platform or whatever that's been burned so much. You press on and draw towards the shadow of the church. The building is in a sorry state. The top of the steeple is missing, a ragged gash of splintered boards making its absence, and the floors beneath have collapsed. It appears to have torn through the roof of the main building as it fell, only the back half still intact. The white paint, which once covered the church, has yellowed and peeled. It seems safe enough to explore the rear section. Old pews are stacked against the wall, choked with mildew. Most of the windows are broken. You guess the church has been disused for about 20 years. There's little more of interest here. Well, make a ride roll. You may have a bonus die. Roll the tens percentage die twice and take the lower result. What's this about? Make a ride roll. So we're going to be rolling 2 of these tens dice. This is essentially disadvantage in this system. And we take the lower. Well, that's actually better, isn't it? Well, the better is the 10 die here, so I got a 19. But it says a ride roll. I don't think I have any. My ride is 5. So, no, that's a failure. Yep, that's a failure. No doubt about it. So we missed something. So we got to go back to 25. I'll let you check out this church art as I read here. Your morning excursions, by the way, I think I completed everything that you could do at stage 25, so I needed to move on to the next step. Your morning excursions have left you hungry. You roam the streets of Emberhead looking for sustenance. There's nothing resembling the busy cafes of your hometown or anything that might be called a restaurant. It's beginning to look like you will have to get your supplies from the general store when May Ledbetter comes down the street with a girl trailing in her wake. This must be Ruth. As she notices you, she races past her mother and approaches you with a smile. This may be the little girl we saw. Oh, this is a different Ruth from the shy creature of last night. So it's different. As she reaches you, she stops and stretches up her arms in celebration. She looks up into your eyes. Abruptly, the smile drops from her face, and she looks several years older. Get out before the festival, she hisses. Get out. She blinks hard and then scuttles back towards her mother. May approaches, wrapping an arm around her daughter's shoulders, and she smiles. How are you getting on? Have you found transport? Startled, you explain the frustrations of the situation. I'd try Mr. Winters in the village hall. He's always in the afternoon. You'll be hungry by now. Help yourself to any of the food in the house. The door's not locked. You glance at Ruth. She has squirreled herself behind her mother's leg, and her eyes implore you to silence. So you can either ask Ruth about what she said, you can ask May about what Ruth said, or if you say nothing. I'm not going to say anything. I know something's up, and I am in danger. I know that. You make leave of the Ledbetters and head towards their house. The door is easily opens, and the low kitchen. You make a meal from stodgy bread and leftover stew. A little window offers a view to the mountains. If you learned one thing this morning, it was that Emberhead streets hold little to occupy the visitor from out of town. But there are still about 5 hours of daylight remaining. You could take some provisions and bare essentials from your luggage and set out in hope of reaching another settlement before dark, or you could ask for some advice from Mr. Winters. Well, the old fellow we met, the creepy one in the cave, said don't try to run. So he said we won't make it. Man, I guess it would be natural to go see Mr. Winters, but I just feel like I'm just playing their game. Well, let's go to the village hall. All right, the village hall overlooks the north ridge of the village. You walk along Silbury Street to find it, conscious of the oppressive black metal structure framed at the end of the road. The shutters of the hall are open and some windows left ajar. There is no knocker, but a bell over the entrance tinkles as you push open the front door. Inside, a sturdy door to your right is marked private. To your left, an opening through to a bright room. You take a few steps inside. Benches line the walls, and there are 2 notice boards mounted between the windows. By the way, there was a little drawing I happened to spot. I think this is what that black structure looks like. I don't exactly know what that is, but it looks burned. It looks like it's had fire on it many, many times. So I'm thinking there's some kind of sacrifice mischief going on here. So we can either examine the notice board or knock on the closed door. Well, let's just check out the board. We're right there. So the floorboards creak beneath you as you cross the room. You feel a slight spring in your step. Perhaps this room is used as a gymnasium for the village children. One notice board appears to be for the adults in the community and one for children. The former looks neglected, featuring handwritten advertisements for household items and a yellowed note about the telegraph pricing. There's nothing about the festival. The children's notice board has a schedule for weekly crochet services and a number of paintings obviously done by children themselves. Most are incoherent, though colorful. As best you can tell, they depict fireworks or perhaps the tale of Joseph from the book of Genesis. One has lost a pen and hangs upside down. It shows a giant bird attacking Emberhead. Oh, my telephone. Or it might simply be that the artist has not yet mastered the subtleties of scale. You have to make a spot hidden check here. We succeeded at one of these before. When you succeed in a check, you get to put a little check mark beside your score. There might be a chance that that skill will go up later. So, we need to get a 60 or less. And we got a 26. That is a success. If you succeed, go to 30. All right, so I had to step away to come up with some examples of small talk for our Japanese students learning English. Back to the story. We're trying to avoid being burned alive here. So we spotted something. As the afternoon sun hits the floor, you notice something curious. The boards under the windows are newer than the boards in the center of the floor. The frames also show signs of having been replaced in the recent past. Perhaps rain leaked in and rotted the wood. So we can put a little check mark by spot hidden. I don't think you add more than one. So let's move on. So it just says the door scrapes behind you. A middle-aged gentleman appears in the doorway. May I help you? You explain you are visiting on May Ledbetter's recommendation. Ah, well, I'm Clyde Winters. I'm not sure I can help you, but would you care for some coffee? I'm partial to a cup in the afternoon. He gestures to the open door behind him, and this seems like a worthwhile opportunity. You are a little thirsty, so go to 43. I feel like this is slowly dragging me towards something horrible, but let's continue on. You step through the door marked private. The other side of the village hall is marked contrast to the public space. Is in marked contrast to the public space. The room is compact, lined with shelves of books and file alcoves. One corner is reserved for a tiny pantry and what is presumably a water closet. You study Mr. Winters as he fills the percolator. Although thin on top, his hair is oiled and neatly swept back. His suit is a sober affair, well-tailored if the cut is a little old-fashioned. A lesser man working alone might have loosened the bow tie for comfort. On the desk, against the opposite wall, you notice what looks like a telegraph. We can ask about the telegraph immediately, or we can talk with Mr. Winters first. I think the polite thing to do would be to talk with him first. The pot begins to gurgle as you exchange pleasantries. Living here, it's a trade-off, like so much in life. He looks past you at the high shelf. I could wish for access to a proper library, of course, but I know myself well enough. I'm strictly a dabbler. And the cities, he wrinkles his face in distaste. Too many people, everybody rushing and shouting. We have a special place here in Emberhead, and someone must accept responsibility for keeping it so. That was my father before me, and now that duty falls to me. He lifts his chin and straightens up. This evening, as the sun sets, look out at the landscape around the village. We have peace up here, halfway to the stars. We are not privileged? Or are we not privileged? Is this not worth the hardships we must accept? He looks at you speculatively. This seems to be a good time to ask about the telegraph. The telegraph. Much as we value our isolation, we do need to link sometimes. You were hoping to send a message? I must apologize. The line's been down for 2 weeks. I reported the fault, but of course they're not speedy when it comes to, something in a rural area like that. I'm expecting a repair the day after the next. I do appreciate how frustrating this must be. The coach is due in 3 days? But I think he's going west. Perhaps you might engage a wagon. One of the farmers might. You explain that you have asked a few of the residents, but to no avail. I'll tell you what. Mr. Winter pours you a steaming cup of coffee. The dark liquid smells rich and strong. When the repair crew arrive, I'll ask them to take you with them. How would that be? They might want $1 or $2 to grease their wheels. The day after tomorrow. It's less than ideal, but it's the first real opportunity you've had. Let's ask about his library, since I'm a professor. You make a small but flattering remark about a couple of the volumes on his shelves, and he blushes with pleasure. Well, of course, they're not my personal collection. They belong to the village. But I did select most of the recent items. This is the community library, you see. I put up the private sign to just stop people from wandering in from meetings in the other room, but it's basically a public space. So let's see, we go up here. You scan the shelves. There's a sparse but respectable collection on mathematics and sciences, passable sections on history and arts, and a shelf on literature. He has a few lowbrow novels tucked away in the corner with tatty copies of Bizarre Tales magazine. Quality does not always equate to popularity, I'm afraid. Winters gives you an apologetic smile. Let's search some of the library. So it says he's happy for me to spend time there and look around. So we can read about the history of the area, to read about the festival, to read something about the sciences, or to read some weird fiction. I think I want to read about this festival. Let's see what it says about the festival. You are not surprised to find out there's no published work on Emberhead's festival. Winters pokes around and finds a cased monograph handwritten on yellowing paper by some Dr. Analowski, an acquaintance of my father's, I believe, Winters says. The manuscript is somewhat difficult to read, and you make slow progress. Analowski speculates that the festival has as its origin in pagan rites brought over by Celtic settlers, which celebrate the ancient festivals of Beltane, Samhain, Imbolc, and I'm not sure how to pronounce all these, Lugasunde. There is some discussion of the struggle between the seasons and a couple of oblique references to the alignment in Emberhead. The writer suggests that the meaning of the festival slowly changed around the turn of the century. The monograph terminates mid-sentence at the end of page 28, just as it begins to discuss the modern practices. You ask Winters if he has the remaining pages. No, I'm afraid they've been misplaced. Perhaps they are still in the library somewhere, but he shrugs. I must make the time for a thorough stock take. Now we have to move on. The afternoon wears on, and you have not quite finished your reading when Mr. Winters glances out the window and stands up. He clears his throat. We need to make a credit rating roll. Credit rating. Okay. Let me see what I've got there. My credit rating. I think I'm going to have to double check my notes here. All right, had to dig a little bit, but found it. It's 30. Oh, I just missed it. I rolled a 35. So we failed. We go here to 105. I'm afraid I have some errands to run before dark, so I must close the library for today. I do hope you'll return tomorrow if you are so inclined. You leave the building with Winters, waiting as he locks up. You thank him for the coffee and access to the library. He disappears off down an alley. You hope to be away from the village before tomorrow afternoon, but it's good to know that there's a place you can occupy yourself. As the light fades, you return to the Ledbetter house and eat a light supper. May is unusually taciturn, so she's not very talkative here. Ruth's eyes flick to yours several times during the meal. There's an urgency there you cannot quite interpret. Afterwards, May ushers the girl into their room. So, their room. I guess they share a room. I didn't know if they were plural girls or, yeah. Every now and then there's just a couple of small little typos here, but it's not too bad. You've been in Emberhead for barely one whole day, and you are already feel confined by it, both geographically and socially. The evening seems to offer little. Stargazing, 131. Attempt to speak to Ruth, 138. Previous appointment. I think we'll go with the previous appointment. We were going to talk to that weird guy. Well, Arbogast is not at the appointed meeting place. You give him 10 minutes, but he doesn't show. You curse the old crank and head back towards May's house. Psst. A hand snakes from a doorway and grabs your arm. You jump at the sight of the half-face glimpsed in the starlight. One of them's near, watching. Come with me. Arbogast leads you across the thoroughfares, slipping between houses. The metal structure looms at the end of the street. Silent now, he says, but the beacon will come alive tomorrow night. He ushers you into a little alcove behind the village school. He glances behind you and then sits down. Again, you feel uncomfortable in proximity to the scarred visage. Once melted eyelids lifts. You don't have long. Understand this. I was the conduit, the interpreter. Before that fool Winters and his fancy words, the things which come to Emberhead care not for words. Those idiots think that this is a ritual sacrifice. He spits on the grass. It's a ritual of control. They know the words, but they do not comprehend the forces that they call. He sniffs and sits back. No, you have no time for more questions. I will teach you how to end it in the moment when all is lost. You can return this hill to the earth, to the death that came 40 years ago. I've tried it myself, but, his head sags, I no longer have the concentration. The chant is simple. I can teach it to you, but you must perform it with clarity of mind that I have lacked for years. So, if we want to learn the strange chant, we can, and if we've had enough of him, we can ignore him. I guess we'll listen to him. He seems like the only one maybe being honest with us. You feel very dislocated from reality as you sit on a cliff top behind a school at night, learning a chant by remote from a madman against... Arbogast is careful to teach you it in sections. He glances into the sky. Won't work right now. Cloud covering the star. But he still takes care not to pronounce the whole thing at once. It has a rhythmic beginning and various elaborations, but the core passage is repeated 3 times. And this is some sort of gobbledygook. I don't know exactly how to pronounce all this stuff. Something Cthulhu, something. In time, he listens to you recite and nods. Remember every sound, but never speak it if you have plans left on this earth. So I've discovered a secret. If your situation ever becomes desperate enough to try his ritual, the text will offer you the option. At that point, if you want to try it, add 10 to your current entry number. He leans back. It will make you one with the living. go to 188. I don't know whether to trust him or not. All right, a black shape lunges from the dark. It wraps an arm around his throat and drags him backwards out of the alcove. He grabs at the arm, kicking empty air, and you see the gleam of a long blade in the moonlight. Make a dodge roll. I'm pretty good at dodge, I think. What did we have? Dodge, dodge, dodge. Dodge, my dodge is 60. My dodge is 60. Let's see what we get. A 49. I'll just slide this down. 49. We did it. So what happens here? It was a dodge roll. We go to 195. So it says a second figure swings at you with some kind of blunt weapon. You shove it aside and scramble out, trying to find a more defensible position. A gurgle draws your attention. Arbogast has a hand clapped around his neck. Blood drips between the fingers and spills from his mouth. His assailant stabs again in the wet blade, slicing his wrists, and sinks into his neck. You see faces now, low faces, daubed with some kind of tarry substance, eyes gleaming with hatred. Arbogast shoves his attacker off, staggering back, more blood cascading down his arm. The old half-man has willpower. He plants his feet and raises a hand. We need to make a sanity roll here. Our sanity is holding at 60. And we got a 33, so we are good. Go to 210. All right. Arbogast howls a choked, wet sound, and he stabs his palm forward, fingers curled in a strange gesture. Fire springs from the ground at his feet, a flickering blue wave. It rushes in a stream, as if following a line of gasoline, directly towards each attacker. Hungry, it climbs their clothing, and they shriek as the flames touch their flesh. Arbogast drops to one knee. His face is pale in the illumination from the fires. His head hangs forward, yet even as his hand shudders, his eyes are alight with an intractable will. The assailants scream as they flee in different directions, eerie light playing off the buildings as they pass. They leave behind a terrible pungency of seared flesh. Tiny shoots of fire dance in the grass for a second longer and then vanish. Arbogast drops. The blood flow from the wounds around his neck has slowed to a trickle, and his breath is shallow and fleeting. You can see the situation is hopeless. His eyes flutter, then close as life departs. You mark a moment in respect. However, the attackers may come back. Who can you trust in this village? Well, we can go get May and tell her what happened, but I don't trust her because of what the little girl said. So we better return to the house and say nothing about the situation. The familiar surroundings of your guest room are becoming constrictive. The neat bed, small wardrobe, and dressing mirror have the feel of a prison cell about them. What are you still doing here in Emberhead? Your new life is elsewhere. You lie on the bed and stare at a small crack in the ceiling. You turn over the day's events, thinking through the little details you spotted. You are certainly weary from the elevation and the fresh air. But do you still feel safe here? Well, we can either fall asleep or stay awake. Well, I think this might be a good point to stop this video. And we're going to continue on some more of this adventure very soon. I want to see what happens. If you've made it through all this, I really appreciate you sticking around and having some fun with me. This is introducing people to the Call of Cthulhu game and a bit about the percentage system that it uses. So thanks for joining me, and sorry for any of the words that I may have slaughtered in reading, and I will catch you next time for the next session.